Oh boy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 91 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I apologize for the delay in getting this one out, but sweet Jesus, this is a long episode. This week, Robbie and I talk about our favorite Simpsons episodes, hence why it went on so long. We talk about them for over an hour, so I hope you're down with that. If you're interested in checking out the episodes that we talk about before you listen to this, totally understandable. The episodes that we talked about include And Maggie Makes 3, Homer's Phobia, Scenes from a Class Struggle in Springfield, and The Mysterious Voyage of Our Homer, the jalapeno pepper drug trip one. So if you want to check those out, please feel free to, just so that you have a little bit more context, because we kind of just dive right into it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. We've got another fun episode coming up after this one, too, with guest Kat Messing. So be on the lookout for that one in probably, I'd say, early December. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope you dig this episode. Thank you. Bye. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Robbie.
And we're going to have it's not even really a chill cast at this point, but we just decided that we want to do something a little bit more relaxed. I don't know, just something that we haven't done in a bit, but we were kind of talking about doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing our top 2 favorite Simpsons episodes betwixt the two of us.
Yeah, for a total of 4.
Yeah, a total of 4. But yeah, we're going to run through each of them. We'll start off by giving a full listing of all the episodes that we went through. So, Robbie, would you please let them know what episodes you chose?
Okay, so my 2 were And Maggie Makes 3 and, oh god, I know the title is actually originally in Spanish. I think it's
I know. It's
El Viaje Misterioso del Nuestro Homer, which is The Mysterious Voyage of Our Homer. Yours, Tracy.
So my top 2 episodes are Scenes from a Class Struggle in Springfield, which is from season 7, episode 14.
Mm-hmm.
And my other episode is Homer's Phobia from season 8, episode 15, guest starring John Waters.
Yeah.
Probably have some exposure to those before, but...
As an amusing side note, did we pick episodes from the same seasons?
Let me check. Okay, so Scenes from a Class Struggle is season 7. Homer's Phobia is season 8, and Maggie Makes 3 is season 6, and let's see, Mysterious Voyage of Homer is season 8. So we've got it's a 3-season jam-pack thing right there. But those are like the core episodes that I remember watching when I was a kid.
Well, so if you don't mind my talking about this a little bit, there's a number of years ago now, like I think closer to when I started grad school. So I read this article ways back because it was published in 2015 called The Way They Was, 6 totally different shows The Simpsons has been. And so they classify The Simpsons as having essentially been 6 different shows by this point. And so I think the fact that we pick 6, 7, and 8 as our seasons is relevant to that. So initially they cast it as lacerating punk satire.
That is a very ominous picture to use for it, but it's accurate.
So bad. It's the family in hell. But it is true, right? Like the reason that Simpsons doesn't have the cultural currency it used to is because when it started, obviously it was like countercultural, but it can't be countercultural anymore because it is part of pop culture, right?
It became such a staple of pop culture that the things that were also counterculture at that point, like Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead, are still pretty niche, really, in retrospect, because Ren and Stimpy's fucking weird. And Beavis and Butthead is also just strange, and it's a very weird format for a show, too.
Yeah. From 1990 to 1993, they cast it as a humanist sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get some of the more tender episodes. For example, Lisa's Substitute is the best known there.
God, that episode makes me cry every single time.
Oh, it's so good. There's also Homer's Triple Bypass, which is extremely good.
That one's intense. Oh, and also Marge versus the Monorail.
Yeah, which is...
That's when it just really starts to get into goofy territory, because that one was famously written by Conan O'Brien. So it kind of ushers in the next era, too.
Yeah, and the next era, which is, I think, where ours are from, is called Absurdist Thrill Ride.
It is.
Which I think, I mean, we'll talk about when we get there, but I think that The Mysterious Voyage of Our Homer is like a pretty strong example of that. And then 97 to 2001, they call a deconstructionist self-parody. So it's getting to the point where it's kind of like reflecting on itself in a number of sort of weird ways.
Yeah, well, like the whole pop culture phenomenon of like The Simpsons doing everything is like, it really just kind of starts to hit that point where like, obviously the show at this point has been on for 30 years roughly. And it's
Yeah,
like there's
so it's
only
been-
so much that they can really do with it, you know?
Simpsons did it first.
Yeah.
The Donald Trump presidency, like, that is
Oh, God.
uncanny.
I hate when they predict the future and then it ends up
I do
worse than
too.
you thought it
Like-
would.
Like, oh, this thing happened. We think it's a joke, but oh my god, it's terrible. Anywho, basically the aughts 01 to 11 they call pop culture chat roulette, which is pretty accurate. Like, because you get weird things like they have to update because the family doesn't age right. You have to do this weird thing where like you update the kids into being born in the 90s.
Oh, God. And like how they change how Homer and Marge met because it's been like 10 years, 15 years since the show first started.
Right. It's
And now Homer's in like a Nirvana cover band or something. I'm like, God
oh
damn
my
it,
god,
guys.
it's so weird.
They also kind of get into like vaguely South Park territory where they start to like really directly more on the nose reference certain pop culture phenomenons and video games and films that come out. Like there was one, at least like later into the 2000s when Pokemon Go was a thing, they announced the episode like a year after the fact when the fad
God.
had really died down for the game itself. So everyone thought it just came across as really dated. I guess it's inevitable because like an episode takes roughly 8 to 9 months to produce anyway.
Yeah, it takes a while to produce an episode. That's where they're at now, which is this kind of weird, like, what they call Triumph of the Nerds. At this point, because of what The Simpsons is, it's not really niche, but at the same time, it appeals to, well, because nerdy isn't actually as niche as people want to say it is, but it appeals to certain aspects of that sort of subculture.
Nerd culture, by and large, has just been kind of absorbed into main popular culture because, like, now
Yes.
everyone's a nerd for something. Game of Thrones isn't niche like how it was back in 1996 when it was originally written.
That's like a joke about Homer now, right? Like, Homer in the early to mid 90s yells nerd at people all the time, right?
When he goes back to college,
God, I love
that's the
it so
first
much.
thing he does.
Nerd!
I
It's
love
so
that.
good. But now, like, now he does and participates in all the same things as those people he probably mocked, except for, you know, actual academia. But, you know, that's outside of the purview of the character, fundamentally speaking.
Yeah, and frankly, with a sitcom that's been as long running as this has, it's impossible for them to not retcon certain things. And Homer being obsessed with nerdy stuff is probably going to be one of the closest ones because
Absolutely
he also loves
right.
the Doodletown Pipers and It's Raining Men. Like he's a giant nerd in himself. So
Yeah, right. Well, so we'll get to it. I'll
Yeah.
come back to that when we get to Homer's phobia because I have some thoughts there that I think are relevant to what you
of
just said.
course, yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna unpack that one quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I think there's plenty of fertile ground,
Indeed.
so to speak. So do we want to jump in with Maggie Makes 3?
Yeah. So here I'll give the original air date for this one. So
Yeah.
And Maggie Makes 3, episode 13 of the 6th season, originally aired on January 22nd, 1995. Robbie, would you like to give a brief kind of synopsis about roughly what the episode was about, and then we'll get into our thoughts?
Yeah. So, and Maggie Makes 3 is pretty much what it sounds like, which is to say it's the story of how Maggie joined the family, spurred by Marge deciding the family needs to spend less time staring at the television.
I mean, fair point, honestly. She's
Yeah, I mean, she's
ahead of her
she's
time with that, as opposed to now.
Yeah, she's not wrong. And that definitely was, like, I remember that sort of undercurrent in the, like, 90s when we were growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, for example, I had one of my best friends when I was a kid, pre-high school, would sit, I think, maximum 3 feet from the TV
That's real bad for your eyes.
on the floor to watch TV, and would also have the volume at, like, max almost. So he's like,
Really?
yeah, he's like right in front of the TV with it like cranked out.
But his parents never intervened or anything?
No.
What the
Well,
fuck?
his dad- I mean,
What the fuck?
I think his dad was okay with it because I feel like his dad was probably hard of hearing, and so he's like, well, that's the volume I watch it at.
He just
don't
never
know-
changed it. The kid never didn't know how to change the volume, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, long bygone days. But so we learn the story of how Maggie comes to be, and so the reason that we learn about that is because there's a question when they stop watching TV, they start looking through the family photo album, and there are no pictures. There are a surprising number of pictures of the TV, which is such a good joke.
And also Bart sleeping.
And
somehow.
all of them are Bart sleeping. Get the camera ready. I'm about to fall asleep. So what they notice is that there's no pictures of Maggie in the album, and so when they ask why, Homer tells the story of Maggie.
Yeah.
And then it ends with the reason why, which at this point is pretty much a meme, but is honestly in context, perhaps like one of my favorite moments of all time in TV.
Oh yeah, because I mean, if you watch the whole episode in context, it's just like you get that one moment where you're just like, oh, like it's so sweet. Like the actual reveal of it.
It makes me tear up.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time.
Yeah, me too. I totally did when I was rewatching it. Yeah, well, the whole impetus behind it was that at a certain point, or at least at the point when this episode aired, Homer had finally worked off his debt of, like, I guess damage or whatever he had that was forcing him to work at the power plant forever. And he decides to quit to do his dream job at a bowling alley.
I do respect Homer's, like, very sort of low stakes dream.
He has like the best attainable goals. It's like eating a big sandwich and working in a bowling alley. Like,
yeah, right.
It's so easy for him to live his bliss. Like, there's no real pressures for him. So in that regard, I salute him. But also, he's kind of jeopardizing his family's livelihood by taking a probably massive salary cut and losing his insurance. So I don't know.
That's kind of the joke, right? Is he's like, we've done the math, and if all these things work out, it'll be fine. And specifically, my favorite is only one of you is going to college, and they go, Lisa. Both of them are very excited about that.
All right.
Yeah, right. Like we all know Bart's not going to college.
But hey, man, pressure's off on them to keep saving, so that's
cool.
They
don't have to save for his college fund. That's fine.
Yeah. Bart would be happier not going to college anyway. Let's be honest.
So that's sort of the rough and ready synopsis, so to speak. So do we want to talk about some of our favorite bits from that?
There's a certain point where Marge and Homer go onto the beach, and they have like a date together and everything, and they're just rolling around, like the standard couple thing, like oh Roderick, oh Evelyn, and but eventually Marge is like, can we get off this beach? There's sand in my underpants.
Well, that's my favorite.
Homer's like, yeah, okay, and then he opens up his pants when she's started walking up the beach and puts more sand in there, and I'm like, that's fucking gross.
I love that moment because not only is it that they're you missed the part that makes it critically funny the putting more in is funny, but the fact that Homer seductively says, I've got sand in my underpants. And Marge goes, me too. Let's get the fuck out of here. And Homer's like, yeah, right. And he runs back, shoves sand in his crotch, and like wiggles around like he wants.
Look, dude, I'm not here to kink shame him, but that just sounds very messy.
So
like the instant he takes his pants off, there's gonna be sand and like debris and possible small seashells everywhere,
Marge and
that's just gross.
Is gonna be furious doing the laundry tomorrow.
I would be.
Oh my God,
and
so
there's also the whole thing how like Marge gets pregnant after they snuggle on the beach, whatever you want to call it. And there's a bunch of passersby when Homer is leaving work from the bowling alley that are all just giving him like these weird euphemistic phrases for, like, oh, congratulations on your little bundle of joy. And he's just like, yes, I do love working at the bowling alley. And then he gets home and he's like, look at all these clothes. Little tiny baby size clothes.
It's almost like you're showering Marge with gifts.
And then Maude says, oh, Homer, congratulations on your new job. He's like, Marge is pregnant.
Like freaks out. I also fucking adore that scene.
Oh, God, it's so great.
So Homer quits, and him quitting is also one of the funniest scenes perhaps in the world, but certainly inside of The Simpsons, which is he quits.
It's definitely goals. We'll give him that.
I do love it. I wish that when I left, I could do something that outrageous.
It'd be great.
It'd be so satisfying. But that he basically yells at Burns that he's quitting, and then puts him in a headlock and plays his bald head like a bongo. I
hope I haven't upset you, bongo head.
I love that, and I love that Burns is just sitting there. I would stop him, but I'm paralyzed with rage. Hand-island rhythms.
Yeah, like he runs with it, and Homer actually just throws him out of the golf cart by the end of it.
Oh God!
What a delight.
I think also the joke of Marge and Homer getting Marge pregnant is that we see the image of like a bunch of Homer's sperm in doing the fertilization, but then they're like, Homer, you don't have to act it out, and it zooms out to Homer doing the fucking wiggle.
He's doing like a little swim dance, like he's got his arms behind him or something, and I'm like, Homer, that's gross.
That joke kills me every time. God, there's so many that are...
There's another one. Like, it's an extremely joke-dense episode
God.
for as heartwarming as the ending is.
Truly is.
The bit where Homer's attempting to get a raise because, after he finds out Marge is pregnant, clearly he has to try to, like, save up more money and everything.
Right.
And his incentive is to try to, like, draw more business to the bowling alley itself. So he gets a shotgun and starts firing it in the middle of the parking lot, telling people to come in. And I'm just like, if this wasn't so real now, it would be a lot funnier to me because I don't think that they realize, like, oh, no, this actually happens, but not for marketing purposes.
Yeah, not for marketing purposes. I think the best part of that joke is it's both that he just does that, but also that it's a callback, which gets lampshaded. So earlier, there's a joke about him, like, he quits work because he finds out everyone is, like, evil at the plant, and he, like, kung fu's everyone to death or whatever. And they're like, all right, Homer, tell it the way it actually happened. So when they get to the shotgun scene, they stop the narrative, and Lisa goes, Mom, make him tell like it happened. And she just goes, that is what happened, Lisa. And she's like, oh.
It's like, Marge, aim higher. Like, come on.
Listen, I love Marge, but her taste in men is unfortunately terrible.
I know. It's unfortunate. I hope that someone can rescue her soon.
I don't know. But
that
scene's just so good.
It just crushed me because it's like he's attempting to read marketing books and he's just like, fuck it. I'll just start firing this gun.
Well, because it's such a good scene of him, like, it's like marketing 101, marketing for dummies, dictionary. Those are some of my favorites. And the last, I think it's probably the best joke, the joke that they more or less end on, which is, now, because you've come back to the plant, the plague, the plaque, sir. Ah, yes, the plaque.
So Mr. Burns forces him to have this plaque installed in his workstation that says, don't forget, you're here forever.
Yes, it's just,
it's
like,
just so
fuck,
cruel.
What a bastard. But so then they go, well, then why are there no pictures of Maggie? And he goes, oh, there are. They're where I need them most. And then we see his workstation, basically, is just covered in photos of Maggie, and he's covered the sign with them in such a way as to say, do it for her.
It's so cute.
It's so good.
Because Maggie in general is so forgotten in the main cast.
I know.
And it's just like, it's like you really see, like, and granted, she's not like the biggest focal point of this, obviously, because she's born, but it's like, it's so sweet.
It
like,
is.
It's really, really endearing to see Homer be a good dad.
That's one of the things that Simpsons does sometimes that really resonates with me and really, like, touches me, is when he's a good dad or a good husband.
Yeah, because for all the times that you see, like, how he fucks up or, like, he potentially ruins things with Marge, and you're like, Marge, why don't you leave him?
Right.
Then you see, like, there are the occasional, like, the really, really good, sweet times where they interact with each other.
Seeing those, especially, through the 90s before we sort of break in the aughts, is really sweet. So that's my first one, and Maggie makes 3. So do we want to say anything else before we transition to your first one?
That's most of what I got for that one, yeah. Here, let me, I'll get into my episode, or like technically my first episode. I tied both of these episodes pretty closely, but this one in particular really resonates with me. It's called Scenes from the Class Struggle in Springfield. This is episodes 14 of season 7, originally aired on February 4th, 1996. Also featuring Tom Kite, who I guess I think he was a golfer in the mid-90s or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right.
Like before Tiger Woods became like a big thing, something. I don't know. But I'm not very versed in golfers.
Yeah,
so,
because golf sucks.
I mean, I don't know. It's so boring. It's ASMR for boomers.
Bam!
But like, got him. Want some ice for that burn, nerds?
Get out of here, golf nerds. You're not welcome. I'm kidding. You're fine.
I guess this episode is probably best known for being the one where Marge buys the pink Chanel suit.
Yeah.
And she runs into one of her former classmates who, believing that since she's so well dressed and that she's also well to do, and invites her out to a country club. And I've got a theme to my episodes, which is mostly that Marge is allowed to have friends and go outside of the house and not do things based solely around her family, which are very surprisingly not a ton of episodes, at least at this point in the series.
That being the case, I'm surprised you didn't pick like one of her episodes with Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, it's something about this episode in general, because it's not so much the whole classism thing that I think is what draws Marge to them. It's just the fact that she can actually talk to women her own age and be out of the house, and it's not Patty and Selma or any of the other like women that were doing the What was it like with the franchising
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
that she had with like Helen Lovejoy and Edna
Yeah,
and
all
all
those
that?
coozes.
Yeah, it's like because they always just kind of treat her like a wet blanket, and when Marge is really allowed to be in some kind of element, and she's actually very charming and funny.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's nice to just see her get engaged with all these other people, but at the same time, you feel bad for her because it's like she has to be performative when it comes to like buying certain clothes, like she has to look a certain way. And this was absolutely a thing in the 90s for sure. Like the whole country club thing is oh god, I actually have kind of a tied story to this.
Really?
Where like a family member of mine had belonged to a country club, but basically it's a complete scam because they basically force you to pay your way to leave in terms of membership. So
fuck
you have to pay
that.
like multiple thousands of dollars. I mean, like we're talking like over 10 grand, whatever. Like whatever the kind of dues and everything are if you're trying to get out of your contract. This person was trying to get out of their membership thing for 7 years.
Oh my
The waiting
God.
list was that long because like that's that's what it is. Like they make their money and their dues for like having maintenance for the club itself, and like their main draw are like doctors, dentists, lawyers, people that can afford to pay that kind of money for a thing that they may not go to that often. Like it really isn't the whole classism thing that appeals to Marge whatsoever. And that's, I think, the important distinction with this. It's definitely not the funniest script ever, but I think it's interesting because it's written and directed by women. And The Simpsons is a notorious boys club for Harvard writers. And you can really kind of tell because Marge episodes are so few and far between. And they either don't know how to write for her or they kind of just forget and just make her into like this endlessly doting, self-sacrificing mom most of the time. Yeah, go ahead, Robbie. Sorry, that was a bit of a manifesto.
No,
there.
you're fine. So I mean, I agree, right? I think this episode does, like, in terms of humor, does really well, just on a situational level, if that makes sense. So, like, it sort of lampshades who the Simpsons are. So, like, specifically when they first go to the country club, Marge says, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this," and so
She also blurts out, "We're not poor."
we're not poor.
Well, we're not.
Yeah, right. Which is just like so. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, I think, in this episode in general. But that line and the joke, I can't remember which one it is, that there's a point where Lisa says, like, "Mom, it's not like rich people are better than us, but they are," or something like that. Like,
Those rich people are so weird and like strange or something. And she's like, "Yes, they're better.
yeah.
Socially better.
Yeah, right.
And if we
There's
fit in,
this-
we can be better too."
Yeah, there's this weird, it's that weird thing that, like, some people just sort of, I mean, I think this belief is gone now, mostly, but there's certainly, at one time, and certainly for some people, is just a belief that being rich makes you just a better person, when in reality, often being rich means that you're a terrible person.
Well, and also it can be tied to other circumstances too, right?
Like,
where and there's a weird kind of performative wealth thing that you get nowadays with like the idea of like buying organic food or going to do yoga
God.
or like valuing
Right.
like certain trips or something. It's like going to like Coachella or Burning Man or something like that, wherein the implication is that you're still having money there, but because of social media nowadays, it's more about like you're kind of showing that you're there and trying to inspire some kind of like, I don't know, like symbiotic envy in some like the people that follow you.
Yeah, there's
basically.
this weird kind of, I mean, it's much different. One of my students is like talking a lot about this stuff in his papers, so. But yeah, there's definitely that like performative aspect to it now, which I think is.
You can see the start of it at the very least in
Oh,
this
yeah.
episode because like Lisa eventually gets suckered into it. Homer ends up kind of enjoying the golfing aspect. The other one we really don't see enjoying anything about it is Bart. Like, I guess there's just not really much else for him to do.
Yeah, I think the problem is they've sort of like Bart ends up being sort of hamstringed in this episode.
Him and Maggie pretty much. Like Maggie's pretty much nowhere to be found until the ending.
Yeah. Well, the problem is like Bart is a mischief maker. It's what he does. It's who he is, right? But he also loves his mom, right? Like
Yeah.
as much as he's disrespectful, as much as he's just kind of a little shit, he loves his mom, so he's not gonna fuck this up for her. The trick of that is how do we fit in a good Bart joke without him like fucking over Marge in terms of the
Yeah,
club
like
status.
when Marge reprimands him to not do any grifting at the country club, and he's like, "Oh, raspberries," and
That
as the playing
that
cards
joke gets me.
revert back into his little cuff.
Yeah, it's
Oh
just,
God, it's adorable.
it's so good. I think yeah. So in that way, it's unfortunate because Bart gets hamstrung, and I think if he weren't in that way, I think there could have been some good fun, right? Like some I'm thinking something on the level of when he's working for the burlesque house. We could have had some similar kind of fun there. You know what I mean?
True, but I mean, I guess like the whole drive between it is just showing like Marge's interactions with Homer and Lisa are a lot more common because Lisa's obviously just like not having it, but eventually she's just like, oh wait, they've got horses. Bye.
Yeah, right. Well, so that's what I mean. Lisa's obviously like my favorite, but certainly in this episode, she shows her colors because she's always...
Well, she's still an 8-year-old girl,
right,
you know? Like,
right.
who doesn't want to go ride ponies? That sounds fun.
Yeah, right. Like, she is like, fight the power, fuck the rich, but also ponies. Mm-hmm. And that's... So, when we were talking about doing this initially, Tracy had suggested doing Black Widower, which is the episode where Selma and Sideshow Bob get married. And there's a joke in there at the wedding where Maggie is the flower girl and she keeps falling over. And Lisa's sitting in the pew being the saltiest little coos, like...
She's just pouting. She's like, I would have been able to do it without falling down.
Yeah, but Maggie's cute. Yeah, if that's what you're into.
Yeah, but like flower girls are usually like, you know, like 4-year-olds and under. So like she's like, come on, Lisa, pick and choose your battles. She should be too proud to do that, honestly.
Right, but it's just it's those jokes that I think those are some of my favorites because it's those good jokes in which Lisa's allowed to be a kid.
Exactly.
Are just really fun for me.
But like honestly, the reason I didn't want to do that one is just because like I was considering it because in general I really like Black Widower, but I think that it's an extremely straightforward episode and there's really not that much that I can contribute to it. I'd just be gushing that I thought it was really funny and pretty to look at.
God, it is. And it really I think what it really just does is it allows them to set the stage of having Sideshow Bob as a recurring character, right? Because that was only his second appearance, which is like buck wild.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, like the reason I wanted to do this one specifically is just because when I was a kid, I was definitely obsessed with Lisa. I pretty much wanted to be her just because like I liked her intelligence. I liked her penchant for, you know, trying out new things and everything. But the older I get, like the more I really appreciate Marge because like she is just so earnest and she's such a dork. And I identify with her so much because like she does so much for her family. In this episode, we actually get to see her be a little bit selfish, which I think is honestly necessary for her. In general, she is self-sacrificing to the point of it just being like just sad. You know, she's almost like a Tennessee Williams character because it's like she doesn't really get to do anything outside of her family. Like you kind of get to see her, you know, like she has a penchant for sewing. She takes this one suit and somehow manages to make it into 3 different outfits.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like the same material. And as a person that works with fabric regularly, that's a tough order because like even like not even just like ripping out seams and changing things out. It's just like, it's crazy the amount of creativity that she has just to be able to do that in like a day. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, she turns that shit around so quick.
Because she just wants friends. I just like seeing her happy and being able to go out and do stuff with that, you know, like that's not related to taking care of her family. Like when she goes to Rancho Relaxo and the house practically burns down because she's not there to take care of them. Yeah, I mean, like, I just, I think that this is a really solid Marge episode. The ending is, it's both sweet, but at the same time, they have this kind of awkward ADR line that they make Homer say. But I'm like, no, guys, you don't have to do that. So, like, at the very end, they're trying to go to, like, this party thing or whatever. Right. I think it was technically supposed to be their initiation to the club.
Yeah, it's supposed to be their initiation.
Yeah, and as Marge and the family are running up there, she basically just tells them, like, no, like, don't do anything political, don't offend anyone, like, don't make a scene or anything, just be good. Because, like, it's obviously very important to her. Then she even glares at Maggie for, like, you know, sucking at her pacifier too loud. And I'm just like, no. But then the farther up she gets on the hill, like, and I think that they should have just had this be orchestral. They have Homer say, you kids should thank your mother now that she's a better person and she can show us how awful we really are. And I'm like, that's kind of awkward, man. We can already get that implied from her going up the hill by herself. But
yeah, I can kind of see that. I do want to call out one of my favorite bits of this episode is that
go for it.
Right after that. She obviously, like, turns around and apologizes, but I love that she goes, Homer, I love your stories. Lisa, I love
the way Lisa speaks her mind.
And Bart, I love Bart's. I love Bart.
I like Bart. And then he smiles. Like, he's kind of getting insulted, but he doesn't really understand it.
Yeah, he's like, I feel like there should be something there. But also, I do love my, like, again, it's like, that's fine. I think that's one of the things that makes Bart an endearing character, especially in, like, these episodes and these seasons, is, like, yeah, he should absolutely be insulted by that. But Bart 100% knows that he's just kind of a grifter. He's just kind of a con man.
I think he's just happy to be there.
Yeah, I think he's just happy to, like, he's kind of just out to, like, have a good time and not do a lot of work, right? Like,
yeah, and like Marge obviously does care so much about her family.
Right.
Like she gets to kind of do her own thing for a little bit.
yeah.
It's a very sweet ending. And honestly, it really was a blessing in disguise that they didn't go there because there's no way that they could have afforded the fees to be able to like get into it.
Oh,
like to
Christ,
stay
no.
in that club. Like no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it was a good story. I liked it a lot.
Do you want to talk about the B story of this real quick?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Which is essentially that, so as Marge is like kind of hanging out with these well-to-do women, Homer is trying to entertain himself and just stumbles into golf, and he's inexplicably
As
good.
one does.
Yeah, you know, just kind of walk onto a golf course, steal a famous man's golf clubs, which is a good joke.
Well, I mean, he is pretty good at being like just randomly violent, and he can redirect that into a golf club a la Happy Gilmore, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that actually makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I love that he does this, and then he has a competition with Mr. Burns in which they find out that Smithers has been cheating for Mr. Burns for years. I love that whole arc.
Yeah, the whole thing with Richard Nixon, like Mr. Burns' Richard Nixon impression is amazing. I can't go to prison, Monty. They'll eat me alive. It's amazing. I don't know how he gets his cheeks to do that, but it's amazing.
Either. I also love that at the end, so we see like I think it's the very last scene maybe, is the country club being like, where are they? We were going to welcome them. And Mr. Burns has made a cake for Homer.
Oh God, it's so shitty looking. I love it.
It is. And it destroyed me because he says, I candied. What was it?
I pickled the figs
pickled
myself.
The figs myself. That sounds horrible. Why?
Smithers attempts to eat it. He's like, ugh. Like it's so gross.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that gag. I also love the gags about the one chick who's like a pre-Sex and the City character.
Oh yeah, Susan, or her name is Susan, but it's obviously just Susan.
Yeah.
And she's like, I hope Marge didn't take my attempts to destroy her seriously.
Yeah, right. Don't worry about her. Her idea of wit is a cleverly made statement of perfect timing.
Yeah, like it's just something about like how all the women at the country club just have like pretentious pronunciations of very general names,
yes.
like Susan, Patricia, Roberta, Karen. Like it's just
it's so good.
God, it's
I
so
love it.
silly. It is very much of its time because like every now and then if I see a weird spelling of someone's name, I'll just like,
is that what you do?
What? I used to see that a lot in like insurance claims and stuff, and I was like, ugh, that sucks.
God.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for this episode. Do you want to get into your second episode, Robbie?
Yeah, absolutely. So my second episode, the mysterious voyage of our Homer. This is the one in which Homer goes to the local chili cook-off, eats numerous insanity peppers.
Yep.
And hallucinates and wakes up on a golf course. And this because of an early argument, pisses off Marge, and so in his insanity pepper haze he meets Johnny Cash the fox, who
oh no, he's a space coyote.
God damn it, I know he's a coyote. But yeah, he meets his spirit guide, which is just Johnny Cash as a coyote.
It's fantastic.
I love it so much. Who tells him to find his soulmate. Eventually he goes to this lighthouse and meets Marge again, and she explains her logic of it, and he's like, oh, you really are my soulmate. And then and then there's some jokes at the end about short shorts, which are delightful.
Oh, it's great.
That's one of those that, like, for no fucking reason, always sticks with me is the end of that, like, hey, who likes short shorts? We like short shorts. And then immediately starts playing that stupid fucking song.
They had a lot of those weird, like, non sequitur endings for, like, 60s songs. Like, I don't know if it was all in season 8, but I definitely remember that being kind of a recurring gag.
Yeah, and that one...
Who would have a tanker full of hot pants?
It's just so good.
Like, just hot pants.
Just hot pants. Arr.
Yes, the hot pants. Man, like, this entire episode's just a knockout because it starts off with, like, a seemingly unrelated cold open thing with, like, the whole chili cook-off, but it's the elaborate levels that Marge goes to prevent Homer from realizing that it's the chili cook-off day. Like, she...
Oh,
Like she starts smoking in the house to try to fill the house with a rich scent of tobacco.
She cuts again. It's the opening of like they're sitting there eating breakfast, and he just opens the paper. Who cut out my paper? Like there's this huge chunk missing.
It's like, don't look at me just because I'm holding a pair of scissors. I've got them to gussy up these curtains. And then you later see her sewing them again.
Oh, it's so good.
Also, Homer's impatient little dance when he realizes that there's a chili cook-off. I do that all the time in real life. But it's like if I'm trying to debate between what to get at like a fast food restaurant, like oh. It's so cute because like it's so pathetic and childish.
It really is.
Because he can't get chili.
It's one of my favorites. That moment also has one of my favorite lines ever, which is, well, of course everything looks bad if you remember it, Marge.
I mean, like, she had her reasons, though, because I guess Homer had a history of just getting plastered and humiliating her at the chili cook-off or
it's not unwarranted.
any number of public events, really. She's not wrong.
No, not at all.
But Homer's hubris as the iron stomach or whatever.
God, I love that.
The spoon.
They
say he carved it himself, but from a bigger spoon.
By all medical logic, steam should be shooting out of his ears. If we're lucky.
His ears, if we're lucky. There's a lot of great one-liners in this. And Ralph being surprisingly very observant and saying like, hey, mister, that's a candle. You don't want to drink wax, do you? And then Homer's like, maybe I do, son. Maybe I do.
I think Ralph in almost any other season is the one drinking the fucking wax. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's an odd moment of clarity for him there. Shit. He covers his mouth in wax to defeat these insanity peppers, which are like...
Yeah, so they wouldn't scald his tongue, basically, so he just eats them whole like a duck.
Yeah, and like several of them.
That was pretty intense, because granted, I've seen shows like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Hot Ones, where like they have chicken wings and like invite guests on, and they have increasingly hotter sauces and everything. But I mean, as a person who will have the occasional jalapeno popper, if I have them late at night, I get freaky dreams too. Like, I think there's just something about them, you know?
Yeah, something about the way they like interact with your body or something.
And they couldn't have Homer do actual drugs, so they're going to have him take these peppers instead.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could kind of, but certainly I think this was a fun way to do a drug trip. And like, God, the animation, again, the animators had to be having so much fucking fun animating this because it's so experimental and surreal and weird, and it's just so fun to look at too. Like, you really get to see them flex their talents. I think my favorite part is the fucking tortoise. Because he's just fucking... The tortoise starts like...
Follow the...
Come on,
follow
up.
the what? Follow the what?
Tortoise.
And
he keeps like trying to shove it, and it isn't moving.
When I'm kicking you, that means you move faster.
He just fucking like... He just yeets him into the distance. It's so fucking funny. But then when
Homer manages to break the sun when he's doing like sunrise, sunset, like going back and forth. It's great.
Yes. But then the turtle's the best because of he kicks it and then he gets to it and he goes, that doesn't look too bad, and then it grows and he's like, this is because I kicked you, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the pyramid that's out, like the Mayan style pyramid that's out in the middle of the desert, and the tortoise is just like, yeah, fuck you too.
It's so good.
Oh, and then of course Johnny Cash as the space coyote, who totally steals the show, because like it's just, there's something about his voice in general is just like, it's just freaking phenomenal.
There's just some weird power to his voice, and I love it and hate it, because why?
Yeah,
why do you have this beautiful voice?
I don't know. It's just like there's a weird mystical quality to it, but it's like he's still a coyote. Like he tries to like bite at Homer's pant leg.
I am a coyote after all.
It's true, but I mean, like I like some of the messages that the coyote has for Homer, but he's clearly preaching to the wrong choir. Because like Homer's just too stupid to really know what he's talking about.
Yes.
But
so one of my favorite there, because I wrote it down, was Homer goes, should I get rid of all my possessions? And he goes, are you kidding me? If anything, you should get more. You don't even have a computer.
At that point in America, I don't know how it was possible. Like, if you could be getting 15 AOL discs in the mail like every week.
I mean, yeah.
Like getting a computer would probably be the next logical step, but...
Yeah, it's just so funny.
Also, when he wakes up from his trip And he's just like, wait, I wasn't in the desert. I was just stuck in a sand trap at a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And that pyramid was just the pro shop, which is like the most impractically designed pro shop ever.
So you say. However,
no.
Robbie,
no.
There is a Bass Pro Shop.
Yes,
in the Midwest.
I've been there in Memphis. It's in Memphis, Tennessee.
That is a giant pyramid because they wanted a good concert venue. It was unsustainable, and so Bass Pro Shop bought it out and turned it into the biggest Bass Pro Shop.
It is admittedly pretty dope because there's also a hotel in there and several restaurants and a nightclub. Like, they made use of their space. I cannot fault them for that. But it does look like this bizarre, like, temple to Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, it's absolutely, like, surreal art in some sense.
It's true.
But, yeah, so those are...
Oh, and that talking coyote was just a talking dog. Hi, Homer. Find your soulmate.
Wait a minute.
Dogs don't talk.
That's right.
Damn straight.
Yeah, damn straight. That was it. Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that's interesting in this episode because even though his hunt for a soulmate becomes like the main thing throughout in like the second half, it really feels like kind of swift in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, like the timing of it, like most of the time that they spent is really at the chili festival thing, and then in the desert
chili cook-off and the desert scene, and then we kind of have to rush through this conclusion, which I don't think is bad, right? Because I think
it does feel a bit rushed, though. I agree.
It does, but Homer searching for a soulmate is both like the cutest and saddest thing ever.
True. I mean, like, honestly, like, do you personally believe in the concept of soulmates, or do you think it's like, because whenever I hear the term soulmates, it's a very 90s term to me for some reason.
I think that's not. Yeah. I don't think we push that as much. So
yeah.
I think that there is certainly something along those lines, but I don't think that it's a matter. I don't think it's a simple 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think like this idea of like the one, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people who could be the quote unquote one for you, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if like I believe in soulmates, but I certainly know that there are people I've met who I've almost immediately connected with on like a strange level that seems improbable for me. So
oh yeah, well, I mean, I think just in general that, you know, even if you're going through just meeting new people, there are some people that you're naturally just going to mesh with better.
Yeah,
like maybe you have a similar sense of humor, or your interests overlap enough to the point that you're like, hey, or like, you know, like you find them really funny and everything. And that's definitely been the case with me personally.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't believe in the whole concept of the one either, but at the same time, it's like the reason that I think it's appealing to people is that they're, you're always on the lookout for like some kind of kindred spirit thing.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of depends on how you approach interacting with other people.
Yeah. Well, I think it appeals to sort of like, it appeals to a couple of things, but I think it appeals to like the desire.
Destiny seekers, basically.
Not just destiny seekers, but people who want to feel special, right? Like unique in the universe, which it's not to say that no one is, right? But it in some ways I think fights the...
I think it kind of cheapens the term, you know, of like things being, you know, like special. Like if you have like this really deep need to kind of feel like special, as though there's only one person that's going to resonate and click with you, then mayhaps like either your sense of self is a little bit fucked up and you don't have enough of an idea of really like who you are, or you're so stringent in your ideas of how things have to be. Like basically when Homer's approaching it before, when, you know, Marge gets mad at him saying like, come on, you can't be mad at me, you're my soulmate. It's like, no, Homer, the reason she's pissed off is that you're just too stupid to recognize how you affected her.
Yeah, you're not actually like approaching.
He's trying to absolve himself of responsibility for it by just saying like, you can't be mad at me, you're my soulmate.
Right, as opposed to like understanding that he did, I mean, that it appears to her that he broke a promise, which he didn't actually, but he effectively did, which sucks.
He did at like the extent of, I mean, he still made an ass out of himself one way or another.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that he had like, I mean, he had control over it in that he didn't have to eat like half a dozen fucking insanity peppers.
No, yeah.
No one told him he had to do that.
That was a pride thing for him.
Yeah.
He clearly just wanted to like try to one up Chief Wiggum. He's like, well, Chief, don't quit your day job, whatever that is.
Right. On the other hand, there's no way he could have known that the insanity peppers would actually induce insanity. Even
though they're called the insanity peppers.
That's
because,
just because they're hot.
But it could just be hyperbole.
Yes.
So
that's just hyperbole. Any other thoughts on this one?
Not really. I mean, I think at the very least it's an extremely surreal and interesting episode. The ending is a little bit rushed and kind of it's a little ham-fisted for me, like the whole sentimentality thing. But overall, I'd say like the opening, like the first 2 acts are excellent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think up to that sort of search for a soulmate, it's solid, and that's why I chose it. Because I think those first 2 acts are good, and I agree. I think that the sentimentality they're going for feels tacked on, as opposed to like the other one with Maggie, where it's absolutely
it's not as
there,
organic.
Right, it's just deep in.
Exactly.
Let's talk about your second one.
Okay. All right. I guess this is the last one we're reviewing for this episode. Is my second episode is Homer's Phobia. This is episode 15 of season 8, originally aired on February 16th, 1997. It's best known for having a guest star of John Waters, the famous filthy film director behind such movies as Pink Flamingos, A Dirty Shame, and I think that there's definitely a few more in there that I'm forgetting, but those are the most common ones that people know. If you're not
familiar, he's known for sort of pushing the genre of film by producing a lot of like weird and at the time very like dirty or...
He's a maven of bad taste, basically.
I don't know what that means.
He just kind of like, the whole idea of like him talking about camp and like the grotesque nature of like, you know, he makes deliberately filthy movies. Like the end of Pink Flamingos involves the drag queen Divine eating fresh dog shit off of the streets of Baltimore. He likes to be just gross, you know, but like in a fun way.
Yeah,
I think it's to poke fun at like like suburban culture and all that.
Yeah, like he was trying to push the boundaries, and he certainly did in like the 70s and 80s. But that seemed now. I mean, I only know this because John and Josh watched this very high one night. They watched Pink Flamingos. That stuff just doesn't. It's not as like provocative anymore. You know, in the year of our Lord 2019.
It is, but it isn't. But it's like you contrast like his 2 best known films. I think are between Pink Flamingos and Hairspray. And Hairspray is like now like one of the most popular musicals.
Oh yeah, and I love Hairspray.
Yeah, you know, like that's kind of a contrasty sort of thing. You know, like he made something that was a little bit more marketable.
But
I guess
that's who John Waters is, and he's certainly like
I mean, like he's a very interesting dude. Honestly, I've read his book. It was very fun.
He's very fun. Anything I've seen him in, he's just so much fun.
He's a delight. But yeah, like so the actual premise behind this, it has a cold open thing where Bart's trying to turn the dryer into a lottery, into like a lotto ball drop or something. He breaks it. They have, they have to get the dryer replaced. So the bill's like $900. So Marge and the family decide to sell a couple of their antiques and some heirlooms at this store called Cockamamie's at the Springfield Mall, which is like, oh God, it's so delightful. I love going antiquing and stuff. And I'm like, just all the fun shit that they have on the walls. I'm like, I would totally love to go here. And John is one of the salesmen that works there. Marge tries to sell a figurine that her grandmother had, I think. And he's like, no, this is a liquor bottle from the Johnny Red's. It was like a bourbon.
Yeah.
A Confederate soldier bourbon bottle or something.
Yeah.
It's like 3 books of green stamps, if I'm not mistaken.
So I love that. I love that because he goes, no, she's like, no, this is a very old action figure. And he's
like, no, it's a liquor bottle. See?
And he pours himself some and drinks it.
He screws off the soldier's cap and he's like, that'll make your bull run.
That was it. That'll make your bull run. That line destroyed me watching it earlier today.
Oh God, it's excellent. Like this entire like the whole episode, like and like the impetus behind it, obviously, is that it's about Homer being he only becomes homophobic. Like he loves John. Like the more he gets to talk to him about certain things, like he brings John over to the house, shows him all of like the kind of kitschy things that they have in their house and everything. Homer's just like totally smitten with him. He's just like, man, John is awesome. We should have him and his wife over. And Marge cannot break the ice to him that John is gay.
She's trying. It's again the joke
he just can't take a hint. Like he's just so dumb. He just can't take a hint.
Yeah, it's the joke of him just not getting it, much like in the other one where, hey, way to get Marge pregnant. That's a weird compliment to say about my new job, but thanks.
But thank you. But yeah, like and that was the whole thing that kind of struck me about this was that Homer in general is really kind of like open to the idea of like kind of campy, silly things. But it's only when he realizes that John's gay is that like he kind of just becomes homophobic, which I thought was a little strange. They were using him as a sound piece for like how gay culture and gay rights was then in the mid 90s.
Yeah, I think what they're ultimately doing is sort of like sort of a surrogate for people culture writ large, gay folks at the time, right?
Exactly. Well, because this was the heyday of like Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and also like Ellen DeGeneres on her sitcom show, like saying that she's gay was like a huge thing, and a bunch of people either got really mad at her or they called her brave, whatever.
Right.
But it's nothing like how it is now, how it's been kind of like normalized and people are more willing to talk about it. You can't be fired for being gay or anything like that. So, which was still a big taboo topic back at this point in 1997.
That's what's sort of trying to do there, pushing those boundaries. But as we were saying sort of earlier, it is weird that Homer is the stand-in there, but it's really because he's the only one who has the option, right?
Yeah, because like Lisa's not going to say anything.
Fuck
Bart
no.
doesn't care.
And
Marge just likes John as he is because she's like, no, John's very sweet and he's very fun and you have no reason to be shitty to him.
Right, exactly. Like none of the other characters have the sort of built-in prejudices that would allow that storyline to sort of make sense for them. Homer has, to my mind, like sort of just enough to make it work for him, but it still reads as odd because, like, for example, again, his goofy little dance when he wants to go to the chili cook-off, like, is certainly effeminate, if not.
And also, like, honestly, his past history of, like, wanting to dress in a wig that makes him look like Marge, like, he's got, like, just, and those are not meant to sound as, like, stereotypical gay things, but it's like he's open to the concept of cross-dressing.
Right.
I mean, Homer's never been shown as being aggressively heterosexual, aside from the whole, like, oh, he drinks a lot of beer.
The two most heterosexual things that Homer does are sleep with his wife and drink beer. But
that's about it.
That's about it. Like, even if you think about it, really think about it, you don't even see him watching football, which, like...
Kind of, it's like, there's, like, the episode Lisa the Greek where he uses her to, like, bet against football and stuff, but that's just kind of incidental.
Right, like, but it's not, you know, like, there's the moment... What I'm thinking of specifically is there's the moment in the episode where we meet his mother, the moment in which Homer's dad, Abe, is watching football and Joe Namath, I think, takes off his helmet and he just has this...
No, it's Joe Montana.
Joe Montana. Damn it.
Yeah.
Takes off his helmet and he has all this hair, and that is the, like... That's the, like, moment of, like...
The moment of clarity that Mona gets where she's just like, the time of the 60s was alive in me. I saw how crazy his hair was. And Abe says he looks like a girl.
Yes, right. So that moment, like, Abe makes sense for that, right? We can see that in Abe. But it doesn't resonate in the same way with Homer, right?
It's just supposed to be incidental, right? Because there's no one else within the main cast that could really kind of do that. And I think that they're just sort of using it as like, when they go into like actually explaining why Homer does not like gay people, he's just like, you know, it's not usual. And
right.
It's like, not usual means like it's not the status quo kind of
right.
thing.
And I don't think Homer is realistically a person who's super into the status quo.
Yeah, like, holy shit, out of all the people to not give a crap about the status quo, it would definitely be Homer.
Yeah.
It's like, he does everything out of his way, like... but I think that they couldn't have Marge do it because it would make her seem too unlikable and conservative, like to the extent that she would just seem cold.
I think it's an unusual turn in the sense that it sort of does it's out of character for Homer, but he's the only one they could use to sort of tell this story.
It's true. Frankly, there's so many fun side B plots that are going on,
God,
like how Homer's attempting to force Bart to be straight, so he makes him sit and stare at like a billboard of these two girls having a pillow fight that's for cigarettes.
Fuck,
He's been like,
that.
Okay, it's been 2 hours. How do you feel? And he's like, I don't know. Kind of want a cigarette. He's like, cool, what's your brand? Anything slim, which is, of course, stereotypical to gay people.
Yeah, sure.
And apparently diet sodas, which I didn't know.
I didn't know. Probably in the 90s that might have been a thing. Definitely not anymore.
I was associated that with, like, Zima, but maybe they just couldn't say Zima.
Well, maybe. Who knows? So...
Steel mill.
The steel mill joke!
I want to talk about the steel mill.
Every fucking time. Hot stuff coming through.
It's just so impractical. Like, the steel mill that has, like, these half-dressed men, which is like, if you are anywhere near any industrial equipment, there's no way that you would not be having steel-toed boots, totally covered head to toe.
Oh yeah, no, they've
gloves,
got like
all of it.
full body like jumpsuits.
Yeah, but like no, in this case they're wearing like hot pants and they're shirtless, like moving a gigantic vat of what appears to be either
some kind of molten steel or something. I just hot stuff coming through. And then
I love that we work hard, we play hard.
Everybody dance now.
That's like a cool ass club with a guy dancing in front of the industrial fan.
Yeah,
I love
so
that.
good.
That's hilarious.
That kills me. What I also love in that montage of him trying to figure out how to, God damn it,
How to straighten Bart out.
to straighten Bart out is the, Moe says, used to be you could send a man to war, but now you can't even do that. There's no wars anymore. And then Barney goes, he could kill a deer. That's like shooting a beautiful man. Which is just such a good joke.
I love Moe attempting to like level with Homer. He's just like, yeah, man. Or he's like, yeah, Homer, the whole steel industry's gay. And you know where else? Broadway.
Yeah, I love the Broadway joke.
Thanks,
it's like,
Moe.
yes. Shocker.
Wow. I'm going to have to put my emergency brake on for that one,
Yeah,
though. Thanks. Oh yeah, he takes Bart to the it's like a reindeer area that I guess it's just set aside for Santa's village or something. They try to force Bart to shoot a reindeer, even though which is obviously so fucked up because they're in a pen.
Yeah, right. It's the fucked up thing of like shooting a caged animal. Like who fucking does that?
Rich people, but you know it's fine.
But I love that. That resolution is amazing in so many ways. But I love is that like you hear fucking Christmas music playing and then like this bad mechanical ho 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 and then like little toy missiles shooting the deer and they go, it's Santa Claus, and Bart's like, it is Santa Claus and he's kicking ass.
Yes. Just this terrifying robotic Santa Claus that John got from Japan. He's like, but there they call him annual gift bringer and he lives on the moon, which is not true because Christmas is actually more of a couple's holiday in Japan from what I remember.
But it is a good joke about the surrogate.
It's a good gag, don't get me wrong. I was just like, if I was less of a weeb, I wouldn't know that, but whatever.
I also love that when Marge hugs Homer, she's like, you feel softer than usual. I've been tenderized. That's definitely a joke that sticks with me.
Yeah, like, Dad, are you hurt? Just my bones and organs.
Yes.
There's so many great one-liners in this, and like John's a very relatable, fun character.
I love him. He's so great.
I wish that he could come back because I love that Marge just has a rapport where he's just talking shit about Helen Lovejoy, and he's just like, I heard that cuffs and collars on Helen don't match if you catch my drift. She's like, I don't, but I love hearing it.
It's so good.
It's just nice to see her have another friend.
It is. I also John's just such a charming character. It's a shame that he couldn't come back. I love that also when they meet him, he's wearing the Pin Pal. He's wearing Homer's Pin Pal shirt, which also is like a stab in the gut, but like very funny.
Like, could you believe that someone gave this to Goodwill?
Yes.
Oh,
it's so good. One of my other favorite gags in this is when they're initially go to the store and Bart finds the pogo stilts.
Oh God.
Because just it's the joke of like he lets one go and you just hear it hit Homer and he just screams, what happened? And I don't know why, just for some reason him getting fucking nailed by that off screen destroys me.
I got that way with both the midget that was inside of the robot from Clank Clank You're Dead, or they just like, just to think about how terrible it would have been for the poor midget inside, and then like they walk away and then the hatch opens up to the front of the door and you just see a skeleton and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's so good. When we get there initially we see Skinner looking at the pins and he goes, these campaign buttons are too partisan. Can't we have one that says may the better electorate win or something like this? And she's like, no. And I'm just like, Skinner, you fucking ninny.
Like, Missy, you just lost a sale.
He just leaves. But like, it's a kid.
He's such a square. Like,
he's such a square.
I love
he can't
it.
even
It's great.
pick like a side in a fucking election.
What a dork.
It's so good.
Oh, great. I mean, that's most of what I've got. Like, I guess that this episode was pretty groundbreaking for when it came out because you wouldn't usually see any real depiction of like, you know, really positive depictions of gay characters at that point.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the Golden Girls, but that was like in the 80s.
Yeah, well, and I think that's really the good takeaway from this is like there's the good. I mean, John has the extremely good joke at the end. Well, I've earned your respect, and all it took was me saving your life. Now, if only every gay man could do the same. Like, that's a good joke, but also, like...
It's disturbingly true.
Yeah, it's disturbingly true for the moment. But again, like, as you're saying, John isn't ever, like, just sort of a flat punchline in this episode, right?
No,
the jokes
not at all.
spawn off of John are things like Smithers popping up when he's at lunch with the Simpsons, right? Like, so this is your sick mother. Don't do this to me, Waylon. Like, that joke is hilarious. Just because it's, like, the awkward dating situation. It doesn't have to do with either of them being gay. That's just ancillary to the joke.
Also, I don't mind that pairing because for as much of a toady as Smithers is, I really do like him as a character. Like, he's shown as being legitimately really caring towards Mr. Burns, even though he has no reason to be.
I think he's also interesting because, and I didn't mention this when we were talking about it, but I think he's always so fun because... he's got so many little sort of quirks about him, which we see also in...
like his Malibu Stacy collection.
Well,
he's the world's largest Malibu Stacy collection.
That's sort of the big one, but I'm thinking of in the Chili Cook-Off episode, he asks Marge to dance, and he's got like...
oh, it's so cute!
He's got the most dandy fucking outfit you've ever seen.
He's like, hello, little lady, want to dance? And she's like, oh, I don't know, it looks a little bit difficult. He's like, can you teach me? And he's like, ma'am, I wouldn't honk the honk if I couldn't tonk the tonk.
And he's got like
it's
a light up thing on the back. It's so cute, but it's also like, that outfit is like supreme camp.
It definitely is, but at the very least, he could tell that Marge was uncomfortable, and he actually went over to just be like, hey, let's dance or something. Like, that was legitimately very sweet.
I think Smithers is ultimately like a much more interesting character than simply the toady.
He's a lot more empathic than people give him credit for. Because, like, he did eventually put his foot down with the whole Mr. Burns trying to block out the sunlight and everything. He's just like, no, I can't do this. He's like, no, you've gone way too far.
There is a limit for him, and he also, like, despite his, like, weird obsessions with Burns that we joke about, he does have, like, a life outside of that, which is always sort of interesting and fun to see.
It's true. I mean, I might be moderately shipping John and Smithers, but I don't know. But
who cares?
I mean, because like just John in general, he like everything he wants to do. He's just so passionate about life, like how he'll take them out to like certain famous spots in Springfield about like that's where Ken Brockman was stabbed or something. Like he's very fascinated with about like the history of Springfield and like all the weird things that go on in it and everything.
Yeah,
like, I find that very intriguing.
Yeah,
like, it's very engaging how much energy and passion he has for all of his surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all really works, and I think it works exceptionally well for the fact that you have John Waters delivering that character.
Absolutely.
I think it, just in the same way that like Johnny Cash is kind of the perfect voice for Space Coyote, John Waters is the perfect voice for, well, ironically, a character named after him, I'm sure.
Just so things weren't confusing, but in even his the character that he has in the show looks pretty much exactly like him. They just gave him a little bit more of a wavy mustache because John Waters has a notoriously like extremely thin just to the very top of his lip mustache, and otherwise like shaves the rest of it off.
I only saw, so my first interaction with John, my first discovery of John Waters was obviously this, unknowingly, but he also appears in an episode of My Name is Earl in which he's a mortician.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, in the commentary they make a joke about it, but what's really funny is he's this mortician who has these goofy ideas of like creating tableaus of the dead person's life. So like, one of them is like a dude sitting in a fucking lounge chair watching a football game. It's just the corpse like propped up. It's so fucking weird but funny.
He probably came up with that himself, honestly.
I mean,
it's just morbid and silly enough for him to want to do it.
Yeah, right. Again, like delightful. Ah, god damn it. I love his description of camp.
Oh, camp. It's the tragically ludicrous, the ludicrously tragic.
Like when a clown dies.
Oh, sort of. More like TV dinners or inflatable furniture.
Oh god, inflatable
like,
furniture.
Yeah, man, I get it. Like it's like that certain era. Basically, pretty much just like pop culture in the 60s and 70s is just like all of that's just camp.
Oh, absolutely anymore, right.
Hummel figurines, like ceramic dogs, clown paintings, all that. I do love clown paintings. Well, I do, but I don't.
I know you do.
I'm terrified by them.
You can't lie, because you made
I'm terrified by them, but I do like making them.
Yes. How is Piccolachi?
Oh, I love Pagliacci. How dare you?
Pagliacci.
Piccoli Hacho. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for this one, honestly.
Yeah,
like, I think is there any real last things about like why these appealed to you so much, or?
I mean, I think it's no shock to any of our listeners. One of the things that got us into doing a podcast was other podcasts, but specifically Everything's Coming Up Simpsons really did a lot for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think
Julia Prescott and Allie Gertz are fantastic.
Oh, they're fantastic. It's so funny. They used to always ask, like, who do you see yourself as in Springfield? And so obviously I was like kicking that around a lot, right, as I was listening to, like, binge listening to their episodes while doing laundry. And for me, it's a weird mixture of probably like Homer and Bart and Homer, Lisa, and on my worst days a little bit of Moe. That's definitely sort of ebbed back, but definitely like, again, the more tender, sentimental aspects of Homer the good husband, Homer the father, those I think are the things that really resonate with me. So that's why I chose these two episodes, because I think they're both, to varying degrees obviously, emblematic of that. Also, like, again, I just really like the Space Coyote. Like, that's one episode that honestly has never, like, sort of left my mind. I always think of that fucking turtle.
Yeah, dude, it's like the cold open that they have is just so funny.
I think overall it's a very well executed episode, at least in terms of the high concept that it's going for. So that's certainly why I chose that one. And then, like, again, Maggie Makes 3 makes me cry just about every time. If I'm not crying about it, assume I've died inside.
It's true.
So
I get the same way with Lisa's Substitute.
Fuck. Oh.
And also Mother Simpson. That one makes me cry too.
Mother Simpson's
it's so
a real good
cute.
One. That's the thing. There's just so many of those. Like, it's those episodes that make The Simpsons, or made. I don't know to what extent they do this anymore, right? But it's those episodes, those moments that are just really like intensely emotional because you're so attached to these characters, that really make it such a good show. For as much of
like hijinks and stuff that they have, there really are a lot of like emotional things, like where the one episode where Homer also almost thinks of having an affair with his female coworker Mindy, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. God. Yeah, where he's just like, like he has to be honest with her. He's just like, wait, we're going to have sex, aren't we? And she's like, well, we don't have to. And, because like he obviously like ultimately Homer knows that he absolutely just married up when he married Marge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Marge is so forgiving, so much more than he probably deserves. Mm-hmm. But it's like they just have this weird understanding with each other. Like she balances him out and everything. And they do love each other.
Well, and those are moments that I think work exceptionally well inside of The Simpsons, right? Because that one, you have this idea of this is what we're going to see, and it suddenly reveals to Marge, right? And that's just so, it's so well executed and also like so tender, right? Or like
Mindy never tries to make a move on him, really.
But there's definitely, right, it's unambiguous that they're creating a sexual tension between those two characters. Or the other one that gets me is, it's the one where Bart gets caught shoplifting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, that episode.
Right? And at the end, Marge catches him trying to fix the family photo.
Oh, God, that makes me cry.
It's just so heartbreakingly good. So,
and then when he puts the photo on the family photo thing, it straightens out like it was askew before. And I'm like, that's freaking cute.
It's so good. So,
I love it.
Any further thoughts on why you chose your two?
I mean, I think it's just the sense of community that you just kind of see that goes on between it. Like, obviously, I love seeing Marge having a good time and just being able to kind of be more in her element. Like, when she's allowed to, you can really just see, like, her creativity, the passion that she has for wanting to get to know more people. Yeah. And when she's not constantly being, like, and I'm trying to not phrase this in such a way, but I guess I kind of have to. When she's not being weighed down by her family, she really does seem to get more liberated and, I guess, somewhat happier. But ultimately, her family is kind of an anchor. Like she loves supporting them. She loves being a mom, and she loves being in that family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's certainly an interesting thread that they sort of tug at a few times, right? Like there's the one where she becomes a cop.
Oh, God, that one's great.
It's great. Yeah. And what we see is that Marge, when she really gets a chance, can just truly shine, right? She is...
Yeah, she's extremely capable. Yeah. When, like, she's put into any kind of situation, she's extremely adaptable when it comes to a new situation.
Yeah, right. So she's not just, like, this empathic, caring mother, right? She's also, like, very competent, right? Like, she's very intelligent.
And that's why, like, I've heard that that's kind of a thing, that Marge episodes are harder to write, but I think it's because, I mean, like, and here's the thing, like, honestly, it's kind of easy to write sort of doofy material for Homer, like, you just kind of have to go to, like, the most extreme length of your stupidity to do something, or like Bart's whole thing of like mischievous or like just kind of a little hellion and everything.
Right.
And Lisa's whole thing of doubting herself or like being intellectual, as opposed to Marge, who's like, she's supposed to be there as like a female perspective and also as like a parent, a mother. And she doesn't get to do a ton of stuff really that's not involving her family. So when that happens, or like when she starts to bond with someone like John and calling Homer out for his bullshit, for not disliking John for no reason. She's like, you like John today, like you liked John earlier today or whatever. Like he's the same person that he was before. So stop being an asshole.
Yeah, right. And I think because she serves that role, but I also think I think you're right to call out the scenes from Class Struggle episode. Because certainly I think one of the reasons it's probably hard to write for Marge is because there aren't enough women in the writing room.
Yeah.
At least certainly older episodes.
Yeah. But it's like then when they do it, I think also the Lisa beauty pageant thing was also written by another woman that was working on that staff. I'm not sure if it was directed though. But it was the same woman that wrote Drop Dead Gorgeous, if that tells you anything.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense.
It really does. Like, also, if you haven't seen Drop Dead Gorgeous, do yourself a solid and find it. It's hilarious.
It's so good. I love that movie.
It's so good. Like, I mean, I guess that's most of it. I think, just kind of rounding it out and everything. Mm-hmm. I think that we have a pretty decent mix of, like, ones that are both, like, hilarious, but are also kind of like heartwarming at the same time, and that's sort of like early Simpsons in a nutshell, really.
Yeah,
like when it's at its best, you can have both of those in the same episode.
That's where comedies really shine, right? Is when you've built the characters up enough that you can sort of start putting some real emotional stakes into the thing, and suddenly, like, not only are you like getting goofy situations like there's a fucking fire coming out of the dryer at the beginning of Homer's Phobia, but you can also have this moment in which Homer kind of grows in the sense that he like comes to accept this person that he ostensibly wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly. Like, and because there can be like, the occasional like overly saccharine kind of sentimental beats that will happen in some sitcoms, like a Full House moment where they're just like, don't worry, Steffi, everything's gonna be okay. We don't need to get Christmas gifts this year. We'll just hang out together. Like they don't do that much. Because even when they do, they make fun of it. They're just like, well, this place, like when they eat the Krusty Burger at the end of the Class Struggle in Springfield.
Oh, yeah.
The squeaky voice teen's just like, man, you guys are crazy. This place is a dump. Yeah. Why would anyone want to eat here?
Yeah, right. I also, oh my God, I forgot to mention it. So perhaps my favorite moment from scenes of a Class Struggle is when the sewing machine, like, she accidentally destroys the dress.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, nothing to do but laugh. And
she just sits there in stone cold silence
for like a minute.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Like it's a long pause. It's like, I guess it's that. It's just so funny, that moment. That one, I will admit, does not have a ton of laugh out loud things that don't involve Krusty being like mowed down at the country club. There's just
because like implicitly because he's Jewish and he's like, I knew my kind wasn't welcome here.
I think all the really funny moments realistically come from like Homer's B story, because those are just the goofy Simpsons things. Whereas,
like him putting balls into toilets or something.
Yeah, right. Whereas like what we're getting with Marge is actually like a pretty real story, right? It's very down to earth, and like, yeah. Again, there are some good jokes there. Oh, Marge, as far as I know, you haven't changed at all, right? Like, that's hilarious. But
you haven't changed since the girl that I never hung out with in high school.
Right.
Or like, oh, Marge, you look wonderful, and I heard that you married Homer Simpson. I did marry Homer. Come, show me the pumps.
Yeah, right. Like, we're just going to smooth that one over, but it's so good.
Oh God, it's great. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. There's obviously a lot more episodes that we could get into and everything, but I think that those are the ones that probably like appeal to us the most, at the very least, or the ones that I know that I can watch the most frequently and just really enjoy.
They're definitely ones that kind of, when I think of The Simpsons and things I really enjoy, I think these are the two that sort of kick in terms of what I really enjoy most.
Yeah, like the best examples of those things that you like best about the show.
Yeah, exactly. It gets the funny beats, and it also gets the like sentimental beats that really like tug at you.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. Robbie, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me at lobster_writer on Twitter and lobsterwriter on Instagram, without any kind of space because they don't allow, because they're bastards. who don't
That
like
is
my
weird.
brand
I never got why
consistency.
they did that.
I don't know. Anywho, Tracy,
Yeah.
where do they find you?
Thank you, Robbie. They can find me on Instagram and Twitter via @TCTroush. You can find our show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com.
Yeah.
We are on YouTube. Our episodes should get auto-uploaded there, so if you just search for Not Joanna Eggs,
You will find us.
yes, we will be on there. If you have any requests or things that you want us to check out, please contact us through Twitter. That is easily the best way to get in touch with us.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we thank you so much for listening. I would like to watch more Simpsons
Yeah,
now.
I would kind of like to do
I got a box set.
But
Probably
we'll,
going to put that on.
Hell yeah. All right, we'll talk at you guys next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Hey, guys. Thanks again so much for listening. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs. The outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or tell a friend to check us out. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Find the show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. Follow us on Twitter via @lobster_writer and @TCTrash. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everybody.